Marketer of the Day, episode 603, Disruptive Advertising. Run Google and Facebook pay-per-click ads with Jacob Baadsgaard.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting here with Jacob Baadsgaard, and Jacob knows a heck of a lot about pay-per-click, and Jake has grown one of his first pay-per-click clients from 25 to 250 employees. And at that point, Jake realized that he had a gift for using pay-per-click marketing to drive dramatic business results. And so his company is called Disruptive Advertising, and he's going to tell us all about what we need to know about pay-per-click and all the fun things he's discovered and some of those shortcuts, tips, and techniques, all that good stuff. So Jacob, how are things today?
Robert, I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Super glad to have you. So is pay-per-click like your bread and butter? Is this your number one thing going on right now?
That is our number one thing. Yeah, that's what we help businesses with, is they come to us to get help advertising on Google and Facebook. And those are the two areas that we do all of our pay-per-click advertising.
Fantastic. So just to assume that, let's say someone listening here has no idea at all about pay-per-click, or maybe they've seen it or heard a little bit and they need like a quick, 30, 60-second catch up. What would you say to someone if they had never heard or never used pay-per-click before?
Yeah, simplistically, pay-per-click advertising is digitally, you throw your ads up and you only pay when someone clicks on your ads. And so you can do that on a variety of platforms, such as Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's just, you're paying when someone actually clicks on your ads, not when they just see your ad.
Okay, super cool. So if someone is doing a search for something on Google, then they get an ad thrown in their face. If someone is scrolling through Facebook and they're targeted in a certain way, they get that ad with some kind of a website link or an offer. So that way we can really get a lot of traffic fast, right? Get a lot of people coming to our website, using our service, booking appointments, all that fun stuff, right?
That's right. And there's basically two forms that the advertising works. One of them is a pull tactic, or the person already knows what they want. They hopped onto Google and they looked for bright green Nike basketball shoes. Well, we can pull them in by saying, we sell bright green Nike basketball shoes, right? And stick our ad in front of them there. But they were already looking for it. So we're just pulling them in and saying we're an option to buy that product or service that you're looking for. The second is going to be more of a push tactic. They weren't looking for it. They actually jumped onto YouTube or Facebook or Instagram to see what their friends are up to. And we're now pushing an ad to them that, based on who they are, what they like, those types of things that we think they might be interested in purchasing themselves. And so you've kind of got both. You've got the pull and you've got the push. Both are the forms of pay-per-click advertising that we're using.
And I like that way of thinking about it, that there are some people who are looking for that exact thing, right? They bought a drone for Christmas. They don't know how to use it. You put an ad saying, hey, that drone you just bought? Here's how to use it. And then versus where there might be an ad to someone saying like, hey, do you want to make and publish your own book? And maybe they hadn't thought about it, but then we kind of have to sort of, like you said, like push that sort of thing on them. And we think that they might want it or they might be interested in it with the right marketing.
That's right.
Super cool. So is there a specific area of this whole like pay-per-click and ad thing that you specialize in? Like, do you specialize in like a certain size of company or a certain niche, anything like that?
Yeah, we do service quite a few different industries. The average budget size that we're typically working with are companies that are spending anywhere from, $10,000 to, several $1 million a month in pay-per-click advertising. Our average is more in about the $30,000 to $50,000 range is what they're currently spending on Google or Facebook. But we actually do have a division of the company that focuses on working with smaller businesses, smaller budgets, and helping them get that off the ground. And so it really kind of depends on the industry. One example is if you're a personal injury attorney, one click on an ad might cost you a couple $100, versus if you're a local dentistry, it might cost you a lot less. And the budget required to do that type of advertising is going to be dramatically different. And so, the areas that we do our most business is primarily e-commerce or, websites online where people can actually buy your product directly. And then we do a lot of lead generation for both B2B, SaaS, or service-based companies, as well as a lot of just B2C companies as well that do things like home services, healthcare, those types of things as well. And as we've grown as an agency, we've just developed teams that actually specialize in each of those categories.
Super cool. Well, sounds like a lot of fun. And I mean, when you're mentioning these things like, selling the bright green Nike basketball shoes or advertising for the personal injury attorney or the local dentist, it makes me think that you probably have some really interesting stories, some really interesting case studies up your sleeve of like where some business came to you and you jumped in and built the ad. So do you have any interesting stories like that? Any kind of like before and after stuff?
Yeah, you bet. What I'll do is I'll actually dive in a little deeper in what you mentioned early on, which was my first client that I worked with. And the expertise that I built earlier on in my career was actually the ability to implement good web analytics. That way, the dollars I spend on digital marketing, I can measure what they're actually producing for me. And so I spent the first few years of my career consulting and working with Fortune 100 companies, helping them get those things dialed in. When I broke off on my own, the first client that I worked with was actually the company that I worked at while I was in college, making some money. And they didn't know how to grow. They didn't know where to take their business next. They were driving in a couple hundred leads a day from advertising on Google, and they just didn't know how to take things to the next level. And so I said, hey, well, let me help out. I'm going independent, would love to work with you on this. And the first thing that we did is we just integrated their advertising on Google with their CRM and where they were managing their leads and their customers. And that way we could see, these ads that they clicked on actually turned into sales for you. We then used that information, and that's kind of our specialty, is really getting in deep with the data and letting that data tell us the story of what's working or not working in our marketing program. We then used that data to, like I said, they were driving a couple hundred leads a day. This was online tech support type services. And they had about 25 employees at the time. We were able to scale what they were doing from a couple hundred leads to up to 3,000 leads a day. They went from 25 to over 350 employees, and they were able to use those results and the fast growth to raise several large rounds of funding to really grow their business very quickly. And that was my moment where I thought, you know what, this is what I want to be a part of. This is something I could do for the rest of my life. And in order to do that at scale, I had to systematize, build technology, and build a team around that so that we could help more businesses accomplish the same thing. And those are some of the funner experiences that we've had. Companies that have grown dramatically, exited from their businesses and done very well. Now it's, sometimes we're talking a matter of years for all these things to materialize, but it's fun, it's satisfying, and we feel like we're making a difference.
Super awesome. And yeah, it does sound like a lot of fun to jump into someone's business where they're sort of on the right track, right? They already have traffic coming in. They're already profitable. They already have the machine going. And you're like, well, let me up the juice on this and make the ads and tweak the ads. And what I really liked about your strategy there is that you kind of emphasized that one thing that was really important was getting a handle on those analytics, right? That you're not just running ads and you're not just testing the ads, but you're also saying, okay, where is this converting to and where is this leading to, so that you can see what's working and what's not. Because I mean, it sounds like when you're playing with some of those big budgets or some of those really expensive clicks, it seems like it would be scary at first, right? To let the ad run long enough when it's like losing money until you have it dialed in. So is there any sort of like growing pains that you and your team kind of go through when you're getting a campaign up and running like that?
Absolutely. It's not very common to make any money. Usually you're typically losing money in the first 3 months as you kind of figure out viability, testing audiences to see which ones resonate best with your offers, testing different creative, testing different website experiences that you point them to. Yeah, and occasionally you hit a home run right out of the gate. That does happen. But what's more common is it's a matter of iteration and figuring things out progressively. And what I see happen too commonly in organizations is that sales and marketing or marketing and the owner of the business are just not aligned. It's very common for me to see agencies and or in-house marketers to be high-fiving each other saying, we drove so much traffic or we drove so many leads but they don't actually measure through to see how it's impacting revenue, right? And so they're high-fiving, but the business isn't winning. It isn't driving revenue. It isn't driving increased sales. And that's where really using the data to tie the two together so that you're high-fiving together and that you're focused on the right things. I think that's the biggest mistake that I see organizations making when they kind of just stick marketing in a silo, and sometimes they think they're winning when they're absolutely not. And we've seen that happen with a lot of the clients that we've worked with.
Yeah, I can see that being a huge problem just in general, looking at the wrong metric, like looking at the number of leads and not the money coming in, and maybe even looking at, the number of likes the ad got, or the number of comments, or the number of views, which okay, that high number might make you feel good, but how does that actually translate into making money?
It's got to translate at some point, or else it's not sustainable, right?
Right. Okay, so a really common mistake there is that people are looking at that wrong kind of quota, setting that wrong goal. What other kind of things do you see happening with this paid advertising stuff that people just keep making the mistakes and just it kind of pisses you off a little bit?
So I'm a big believer in automate what can be automated, right? Because there's no reason to have someone manually doing what a machine or a software can do for us. And so we actually developed a technology earlier on in the business where we could automate the process of auditing these pay-per-click accounts, Google, Facebook, whatever. And we now have over 5,000 audits under our belt. And what we've actually been able to measure is that 76% of the budgets that people are putting into Google and Facebook are completely wasted. That does not mean that the other 24% was profitable. It just means it at least produced something for them. And it's actually, it's mind-boggling. It's staggering to see how many dollars are wasted on these platforms. I guess it's a good thing. That's one of the reasons why my business exists and is doing well. And the mistakes that we see that are just almost guaranteed every single time. There's a box that they forgot or didn't know that they were supposed to check or uncheck. So their ads are showing in the wrong location, sometimes in interesting countries like Afghanistan. We see people that are spreading their budgets way too thin and bidding on anything and everything that they possibly think could be relevant in terms of audiences or keywords on Google or whatever that might be. And their ads are turning off at 10 a.m. because they didn't have that much budget behind them, and they're learning nothing about their audience because they've spread their budgets way too thin. And so what we found is that typically less is more, right? People are overcomplicating this. And as a result, they're wasting a lot of money. When the reality is we can just target a couple of audiences, start with a couple of keywords, test some different ad messaging, test the different website experience pages that we point them to, and let's really get those nailed down first before we start spreading the budget too thin. That way we can conclusively test and understand what's going on. And that's what I don't see happening. The average account that comes to us is broadly targeting with broad messaging in their ads and still pointing people to category or even home pages on their website. And then they wonder why they're not getting good results, right? When effective pay-per-click marketing is very specific targeting with very specific ad messaging and a very specific page or experience that we're pointing them to on the website to make the experience seamless and easy for them to take the next step.
Awesome. So it sounds like it's really a patience game, first of all, to be methodical and make sure that those ads are working and make sure that those pages are working. And it sounds like it needs to be really specific. You can't just try to blanket everyone with your ad and try to blanket everyone with your landing page. You have to really get it dialed in. And it also seems to me like the way you describe it here is that it's very iterative, right? Like you have to set it up and then kind of come back and revisit it every day or multiple times a day, just to kind of tweak things or see how things are going. It just seems like it's kind of a long process. And a lot of people think it just needs to be just one and done. I'll slap the ad there, which how far is that going to get you?
And what's funny is that you're spot on, but it's actually faster to do it the right and methodical way than it is to do it wrong a bunch. And so it's, doing it the right way, definitely there's typically not the silver bullet or shortcut. And sometimes those do exist, but then the market compensates pretty quickly, right? If someone's making buckets or truckloads full of money because they uncovered a niche in an industry that people just weren't aware of, well, the market and the competition catches up relatively quickly. And so sustained and long-term success, you've got to go through the right steps. Yes, it does take time. It's also not a static target. So even when you get it to work, keeping it working is still takes time and effort as well. But it's a lot faster than trying to take a bunch of shortcuts that inevitably you don't ever find success. It takes just as much time and energy, if not more, as well as resources. And then you don't even end up where you want to be anyway. And so just do it the right way, take the right steps, and then it's sustainable and you actually get there quicker anyway.
Awesome. Yeah. It's like you're a little like slow paced and patient there, but then you actually get to where the money is, as opposed to having to start over again and again and wondering why it's not working. And then you're like, well, it's sort of working. I'm just kind of tweaking it and getting there on the right track. And so something that has really interested me lately with some of this pay-per-click stuff is doing your pull tactic, where you like target someone really specific who wants this thing right now, and then getting them to a specific landing page that kind of matches the ad, and then quizzing them out a little bit, right? Like seeing if there's someone who's like asking them a few questions and seeing if they're that hot prospect and putting them in the CRM with like a lead score somewhat. So that way you kind of let them self sort out if they're like ready to buy right now or just kind of only interested. So have you done any sort of stuff like that recently? Like the specific targeting and then the quiz to sort them out a little bit?
Well, there's actually a couple of ways to do that. Absolutely, quizzes are an effective way to get a quick barometer on how someone's feeling about a particular topic and or product or service or those types of things. What's interesting is that, Robert, you can actually measure this based on their behavior without asking them anything as well, right? So someone that came to the website and spent 15 seconds on a homepage and bounced versus someone that came to the website, spent 3.5 minutes and looked at very particular products while they were there is already telling us what they're interested in, right? And so sometimes inserting a quiz might create unnecessary friction. Sometimes it might be necessary because you're such in the exploratory phase of your marketing that you just need something from these people because you may not have the right pages for them to go to begin with. And it's almost like market research using these quizzes and those types of things. And so what we've found is that you want to use a combination of both, but typically the most seamless experience is just test pointing them, measure and the behavior and see what they're doing, and then offer them based on what they're actually doing. Now, where quizzes come in handy is there's always a certain percentage of the audience that might not have done anything if you didn't ask them the questions. And so it allows you to tap into that. People that might have bounced because they didn't see what they wanted, and a quick question that says, well, what are you interested in? And then all of a sudden, oh, well, we're just pointing these people to the wrong place, right? Let's get them to the right place. So yeah, we definitely want to use a combination. And those are tactics that not only do we do that absolutely should be used in any marketing effort.
Okay, great. Yeah. And it's like, those are always the kind of things where like, I always forget that they exist. And it's always like really like done right there in my face that, that we can measure like how long they were on the page or if they stayed on multiple pages, like with the analytics, we can see all that stuff. And I'm blown away, and it doesn't happen super often, but I'm blown away with many times. Like sometimes I'll just opt in on some company's website and then I'll get a quick personal email, and like it's like they had a system for that, right? They loaded it into that CRM, they sent that personal reach out. And it's one thing where like if I register for a free demo account for some software to get a quick personal video or a quick message, but to get it just based on me being on that web page and opting in, that's one of those things where it's like if you can figure it out with all the systemization, the automation, like that's a super cool thing to do. And so I always forget about how like, oh yeah, we can retarget someone based on not just the whole website, but on that specific product that they looked at, just those little things to help them to see what help them get to where they need to go based on their behavior. And so you mentioned a few minutes ago here in our conversation that you built some of these software tools to do things like automating the audits and just make this whole paid advertising thing a lot easier for people. So can you unpack that a little bit and kind of tell us what sort of cool software tools you built?
Yeah, you bet. And actually, just addressing what you were just discussing, there's really two metrics that drive the success of any business. And that is how much it costs to get a new customer, and then how much that customer ultimately pays you. And so just to emphasize your point, that nurturing process, not only does it reduce the cost to get a new customer, you can use those same nurturing techniques to say you bought this and you would also benefit by having this, which is very complementary. And by doing that, you actually create a big gap and a competitive edge in your market by saying, I've effectively used nurturing and measure behavior and address it appropriately, where I'm now getting customers for cheaper than my competitors. And I'm using the same tactics to sell them more than they were buying before. And I've just created a huge gap in terms of how much it costs me to get a client and ultimately how much they're paying me over the long haul. And those nurturing techniques that you were just discussing, Robert, that's where you can really create a competitive advantage for yourself compared to a competitor.
Yeah, and I like it seems like a lot of your thinking here is based on like what's the calculation, right? Because a lot of people out there might say, well, I don't want to spend the time, following up and nurturing those customers, or I don't want to, hire the virtual assistants to do that and pay that money. But you're saying, well, if you can calculate how much that pays off for you, and if it pays off with more money than what you paid in, then why wouldn't you do that all day long, right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
And that's where, the technology that we've developed is really to help streamline this whole process, right? It's a way to audit existing campaigns and how they're performing. But as we've scaled our organization, for me, working out of my basement as a consultant, we've got over 100 people in the organization now, and we work with over 500 companies. And I have to make sure that we're delivering for all of them and not just hope and pray that everyone shows up and does what they're supposed to do. And so that's where we've really leveraged technology to facilitate that, where we can audit in real time all of our accounts, our best practices implemented. Are we seeing what we need to see there? And that's a tool that we actually provide for free for people that are interested. Hey, how are my campaigns doing? We can just run the audit, connect. It takes like 30 seconds, spit out a beautiful PDF of, hey, here's everything that you're doing right and doing wrong in the account. And either go fix it yourself, or if you don't have the time, then that's why people hire us to do it, right? Is because they lack the bandwidth or the expertise. And then the other component is we've automated reporting so that we don't have to dig through a bunch of platforms and see what's going on. We've connected with all their APIs and have just made a simple reporting dashboard that puts it all into one place, and that we can create automated and real-time reports and dashboards and pacing and all the things that we need to see about our campaigns. And then finally, we've got a strategy component where all the measurements and the calculations and the audiences, the things that we've just kind of talked through, where we've systematized, here's how we go through that process, where we define them, how we target them, and the strategy that we're building for the next 12 months to hit our strategic business goals. And so those are the things that we used to just do all of it manually when we got the business going early on. And that we've just built the technology and processes around to really streamline that. And, it's working fantastic.
Super cool. And there's a really interesting lesson in there in that, it's like you figure it out and get it done any way you can and do it manually, do it the hard way. But then once it's all done, if you're kind of repeating yourself over and over, or you're doing all those same tasks, then why not look into some sort of systemizing, some sort of having the software do the job. So that's pretty cool. And it's also nice from a marketing standpoint that it's like, well, it's a really, gradual way for people to kind of dip their toe in the water, right? Because if people say, well, I have all these pay-per-click ad campaigns, and it would be nice if someone would jump in and look at them, but then that's quite a gap to jump over there. But you're saying, well, use this free tool, connect your accounts, you can run the report, and then you can see where the problem is, and then it's a much shorter gap to jump over there when it comes to you and your team and your company helping out with those ads. So there's something to that, to having like that free audit tool to scan things and see where things are wrong. So that way the decision to pay to get that fixed is not such a huge decision to make. So that's pretty cool from a marketing standpoint. And then, so for people who have these pay-per-click campaigns that need, some refining, some helping, how the heck can they sign up and use this free tool, which sounds awesome?
Yeah, it's simple. Just go to disruptiveadvertising.com and fill out the form, and we'll get a hold of you. It's and to your point, Robert, our audit tool actually gives you a letter grade. So taking us back to the good old days of high school and college, right? And it actually measures the potential amount of dollars wasted in the account. And so it makes making a decision very, very easy, right? Fix it yourself, and this is the amount of money you could save every month and or put to work for your business. Or if you don't have the time to do it, this is how much it's going to save you. And we typically cost a very small fraction of that. And so it's a pretty easy business decision at that point. And that's how we like to make it. It's not a convincing game or an emotional game. It's like, no, specifically, this is what's working, this is what's not, and this is what's on the table for you. And so, again, our team walks you through that, gives you all the insight that you need about the report, and you can get that by just reaching out at disruptiveadvertising.com. And we'd love to chat.
Super awesome. And there's definitely something to what you said there about like running the calculations and removing the emotions or substituting one emotion with another, because it seems like when we don't measure things properly, then our judgment is way out of whack, right? Like if people
Absolutely.
say, well, I don't know if I have the time or if I have the money to fix my pay-per-click campaign, and your calculator, your tool says, well, here's all the money that is already going out the window when you don't fix that. So which is worse? And it kind of makes me think of, sometimes we'll be like on the computer and following up with customers, and you might think, geez, I must have been following up with 40 or 50 customers, and then you look back at the work you actually did, and maybe it was 5, right? Or maybe you're out doing yard work and you're like, I must have been doing yard work for 2 or 3 hours, and you look at the clock and it's been like 10 minutes. So it's like our emotions and our minds and our judgment definitely play tricks on us. So it helps to have that, to run the numbers sometimes and have the calculations. That way we can make a more educated decision, as opposed to just winging it or, based on how we feel. It seems like a really reckless way to go about things. And it seems like the better way to go about things is to have that data, is to have that analysis, and that way we are being more deliberate about our business building and our marketing, and we're getting where we need to go, and not just reacting, right? So the place for everyone to go right now is disruptiveadvertising.com. So that way you can act in your business instead of reacting, because that's what, reacting is what everyone else does. You don't want to be like all your competitors who are struggling with their ads, who are struggling with their lead gen, who don't even know where the problem is. So disruptiveadvertising.com. And then when they get there, like, what are they going to see exactly? And what would you like them to click on? Should everyone sign up for this free tool, or what kind of possibilities are there for us?
Yeah, so there's people really come to us for one of 2 things, and then we end up being able to help with 4. They come because they just want help advertising on Google or Facebook, right? That's what people come to us for. You can either just go to the homepage and fill out the form, or you can specifically go to disruptiveadvertising.com/audit. And that's where you can go and fill that out to get a free audit done. What we've also found that, like I said, those are the 2 things that people need help with or are coming to us for. What they often don't realize that they need in order to be successful on Google and Facebook is they need good data. So they need to have their analytics set up correctly. And then they also need to have the right website experience to point the traffic to begin with. And so those are the other 2 areas that we help companies with. We're not a full service agency. Those are the 4 areas that we help with, and we don't do anything else. We've kind of maintained that as our niche and our specialty. But that all of the services are clearly articulated on the site. There's very simple pages about each of them. And you can either reach out for the audit or in any of those areas that you think you might need help with. And either way, we do a free audit or a free website audit or whatever that is, provide you the deliverable, and then you decide what you want to do from there.
Fantastic. Always good to have those extra choices and that extra little bit of information. So so if you are out there and you are running an ad budget of $10,000 a month or more, if you're in B2B, SaaS, B2C, or anything like that, and you say, well, I know that there's money just being wasted every single month. It might even be like that 76% of budgets that Jacob has found that are wasted. Maybe you're wasting all this money every month and you want to do a little bit better or a lot better with your paid advertising campaigns, and you need to go right now to disruptiveadvertising.com and get that taken care of. And if you want to jump exactly to that audit tool, that is disruptiveadvertising.com/audit. So great stuff, and we'll see you over there at disruptiveadvertising.com. And thanks so much, Jacob, for letting us into your thought process, giving us some of those interesting tips, and just opening our mind as far as what's possible, as far as being scientific and measuring things and running those paid ads and scaling. Sounds like a lot of fun. I think people will get a lot out of it.
I agree.
Cool. Did you leave us a quick review on iTunes yet? It's quick and easy. Just go to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, click the View in iTunes button, and we would be very grateful.